Get to know Sean Allen, aka The Real Goal Setter. He's a dynamic engineer, coach, project manager, real estate investor, and the co-founder of Estates LLC. All right, Sean Allen, aka The Real Goal Setter. Welcome to the Chundria Show. How are you today?
I am well. I'm well. Thank you. And it's good to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Of course, my pleasure. Okay, so we're going to dive on in today and we're going to slide these credentials you have across the table, okay? Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering, North Carolina A&T, check. Master of Science in Business Administration from the University of Rochester, check. Project Management Professional certification, and then you also have expertise in environmental social governance from UC Berkeley, check and check.
Yes.
Given your impressive educational background and certifications, how have your academic experiences contributed to your ability to problem solve and make decisions in your career?
Oh, lovely questions. I think when you look at education, credentials, training, for me specifically, each area was like a chapter of my life that just added a little bit to develop to who I am today. And so when I look at as an engineer, that's kind of helped me with how do we figure out what the process is of things, right? From business school, it's like, well, I've learned how business should be ran, and you get into the real world and you find out how things actually are ran. It's like, oh, I know what the golden plate standard is. How do we kind of develop our ideas and our own businesses to get to that pathway? So after all the school stuff, you look at the certifications. I'm a realtor too, and I'm a certified professional career coach. So I believe in continuous learning, and each idea that you have, each opportunity to learn something new develops your skill set. And that's what it's done for me. I put them all together and I use that for project management, not just as a career and as a consultant, but just as a lifestyle.
I love that, and you're also an engineer too, right?
Yes, correct.
Engineer, investor, coach, project manager.
I haven't done a single thing of engineering from a civil engineering perspective, probably since like 2013. And so what's important to note about engineers is we learn how to identify problems and solutions to those problems. And so for me, that's what's really important is I just love working with people, right? And I love working with organizations, business, find out what their problems are, and then see how I can use that scientific method to help solve those problems. So that's kind of what engineering is, and I use that almost on an everyday basis when I approach problems.
Sure, I love that. And then tell me about your company. Is it DAS Estates LLC?
Correct, DAS Estates LLC. 10 years old, I feel like a teenager now. So we started in 2013 in June, and just started off as a real estate investing company, had some property in North Carolina and California, and had the opportunity to get into real estate investing coaching right around 2020, 2021. We started to get a lot of folks who were like, how do you do it? How can I do it? And we started coaching them on what does this whole world of real estate investing look like? And so now it's really grown into a consulting firm where we're kind of out of just the real estate. We're looking at how do we work with the nonprofit organizations, educational organizations, institutes, for-profit and nonprofit businesses on step 1 to step 10. What's your process flow for how do you manage projects and or programs or investments? And so it's really grown into multi-state training opportunities where we can make an impact on small groups, organizations, as well as hopefully some larger companies from a project management perspective.
Hearing all of that, sounds like a really busy life you have. What's a typical day in your life look like?
Ooh-wee. Are you sure you want to know? I don't want to stress you out, okay? But let me give you a typical day. So I typically don't sleep too much, all right? The thing is usually I'm up before the sun, right? So I get up and the first thing I do is, goal set. Most folks are social media, they're looking at Facebook, IG, Twitter, TikTok, all that first. They're looking at other folks first. For me, I do an introspective look and I say, okay, what are my goals for today? What are the goals for this week and or month or even longer sometimes? So the first 30 minutes is goals, news a little bit. I listen to some really uplifting music, and that's how the day starts until I get into whatever it's work or project management consulting, or I'm a landlord, maybe some tenant stuff, or maybe I'm coaching a client or doing project management. I'm exercising, and then that's all just during the morning time. Usually probably around 5, 6, 7 o'clock. what do? I revisit some of those goals, check them. How am I looking on some of these goals? Check the bank accounts too, because with all these properties and different, business income streams and things of that nature, we also have to look at, the details. And I do a detailed look every day, usually around 5, 6, 7 o'clock about, action items that I may or may not have completed, emails, accounts, and check some investments. And even if there's only $30 in something, right? I still want to check to make sure that that $30 didn't turn into $15 or so. All right. And so usually my day comes to an end, usually around 7, 8 o'clock. And that's time to just relax, meditate, take baths. And I think that's important. You always have to have something that can kind of relieve the stress, debrief for the day, relax the mind. And usually I try to add a social element by like 8, 9, 10 o'clock, watch some TV maybe, spend some time with my wife, socialize with the network, yada, yada, yada. And that's rinse and repeat. And that's typically about 6 days a week. Sunday, I try to have a little bit more spirituality focused time to take a step back and kind of reevaluate some things and get ready for the next week. But not a lot of sleep, but a lot of planning. And but I do catch up sometimes on the weekend to get some sleep.
You seem really skilled in time management and organization. Do you have a team that helps you?
Oh, excellent. Time management is important, and it is a constant and daily battle. And I don't think I'm the best sometimes, and other times I'm like, wow, I really did that. So I do have some help. Luckily, I have a couple of small businesses, right, from the career coaching to, with DAS Estates. I have a business partner, and he's really, really technical on this side. He's a professional engineer licensed. So when I get those technical questions that come in about some of these finance-based organizations or real estate-based questions that are a little bit more technical, luckily I have the opportunity to leverage someone that's his bread and butter, and he loves that, right? I also have the opportunity to have some independent contractors, right? We hire independent contractors to do some of the admin work to help us out with, searching for listings or, looking at how do we create an org chart or process flow. So we bring in independent contractors who their bread and butter might be just admin or Excel, right? And that kind of frees up my mind for whatever it is, goal setting and vision planning. And then lastly, it's important to say that I think it's really important that your network is important. Like what you eat is who you are. Some may say that, but for me, it's like who you surround yourself is really important. If they're giving you positive vibes, if they're supporting you, if they're bringing you to that next level, I find that gives me the motivation to be able to look forward and know that there's other folks out there that are 2 or 3 levels higher than me, and I have a lot to aspire to. So that's kind of the core I see about your network and having some help and knowing that there's folks that are passionate about certain things that I may not be passionate about. I can kind of bring them in and add them to the team as need be.
Have you thus far been able to train? It sounds like you've been able, 10 years in the business, have you been able to train people up?
Well, now you're really getting into it. So I love training. The issue sometimes is, and as you know, as an entrepreneur, everything's like in here. And my goal is always to say, how do I replace me, right? So that way someone else can come in and do what I'm doing. I can focus on other things, like growth and outreach. I'm really big in the community. So I volunteer 10 to 12 hours per week. That's important to me. But yes, training is key. I enjoy mentorship. Mentorship is key to me. And so I have about 3 or 4 mentees from age 18 to early 20s to in their 30s where they're interested in learning something. And if I can give back to them by training them on how to do what I do, i.e. landlord processes or project management consulting, I enjoy that mentorship. And I enjoy sometimes knowing that it may take me longer to train them to do something than me to actually do it myself. But that gives me glory to know that they're learning, I'm learning, we're developing that relationship. And guess what? One day, maybe they'll be able to take on a larger portfolio, and that'll be one less thing I can focus on. So training is key, and I think mentorship is part of that, because if you're not interested in being a mentor, I think the training could be a little bit difficult.
I think your mentorship goes right into this moniker you have, the real goal setter. Talk to me about the mindset and work ethic that you believe is essential to become better in all areas of our lives, talking physically, mentally, financially. It sounds like that's the work that you're doing outside of business.
Excellent. So the real goal setter, we talk about goal setting often. And for me, I like to set real goals, right? Now, everyone has their own definition of that. Right? For me, it was very quantitative. It's like, you know what? I want to buy a house by 23. I want to become debt-free by 30, right? Those are real goals. And it's okay to have FAR goals, SMART goals, if you might have heard, or REACH goals. I do that as well. But being the real goal setter to me means really 3 steps. What is your vision? And then understanding, developing that vision, what's those missions to get you there? And then now let's put together some goals to get there. And so long story short, over the past 10 years, I've had the opportunity to, make some mistakes, right? Just be honest. I've bought some property and, I racked up about $34,000 of credit card debt, and I realized that I was not making always the best financial decisions to get to those goals. And I had to pull that back and say, okay, what the real goal is, if these goals are aligned with the vision of happiness and being connected to the community and debt-free living and financial stability, these are keywords, why am I doing other spending habits that don't line up with that? So I had to correct that and paid off the student loans, $50,000 or so, by that age, mid-20s, and then paid off the credit card debt by 30, became debt-free, and now I can really start to look at how do I build net worth and maximize the input, and really do start going business to business, right? Because I enjoyed, being a realtor and helping folks buy their home, but I got so much excitement when I'm standing in front of a classroom and talking to folks of all different ages and professions and say, hey, how do we improve your life through goal setting, whether it's working with nonprofits or volunteer organizations or schools. So for me, that's the whole real goal setter persona is, what's the vision of what we're trying to do personally or in our business? And then let's put together some goals and knock that out. Oh, and of course, let's track it. And that's my favorite part, is being that accountability partner or that champion to help folks, businesses, organizations track how they're tracking towards their goals. To me, that's what the definition of the real goal setter is.
Many people have a kind of a jaded relationship with goal setting. A lot of people don't have a lot of experience, or they set goals, but they didn't have that accountability partner, or they never really learned how to hold themselves accountable. So, I can appreciate that, you've made it like your life's work to help, because you could have just, secured all the money in the world for yourself and went on to live happily ever after, but I think it's something really special about, being selfless in that way and making sure, like, that's how you build community. That's how, we get rid of deficits. That's how we, build businesses, Black-owned businesses. That's how we do more, in our lives and in the lives of others. So I think that's truly like special that you sought that out to do, and you still do that on top of your really rigorous schedule. So I'm curious, what's one choice, big or small, that you've made either in your education or your career that you're still incredibly proud of?
Wow. So one big choice and or opportunity that I made that I'm still incredibly proud of, I would say that's a really good question. I think what's important for me is stepping out of my comfort zone. And so being the engineer and, being the project manager, that's all wonderful. But for me, when I had the opportunity to be part of a fraternity, Alpha Phi Fraternity Incorporated, I was pushed to a limit to sign up for a role that I thought I had no experience in, on being an executive director of a nonprofit of a whole region, 13 states, 2 countries. It's unbelievable. And I'll tell you the truth, when I was looking at, well, how am I gonna make a bigger impact in my local community, we often think about our town, our neighborhoods, and maybe our state, county, okay, sure. And I'll say, well, I want to do something like that. And the opportunity presented itself for me to stretch out to include the whole West and, members in Japan and Korea. I didn't feel like, could I do this, And so I hopped into it, and it's been 3 years into that role. And I tell you one thing, I've had the opportunity to present in front of hundreds of people from all different types of, different backgrounds, ages. And, I had a fear of public speaking, right? A lot of people didn't know that. I had a fear of public speaking. I actually, started a public speaking company in 2011, and it failed because I didn't have anything to say that anyone wanted to hear, right? And so now I'm in this role where I'm like forced to be like, okay, well, you have to introduce the speakers and you have to put together content for conferences and academies. And it's just like, wow, can I do this? And I did and am doing it. And it's been a blessing to be so connected to folks that on an average day, I'll tell you the truth, I could talk to someone that's in college that's 18 years old to someone that is 80 or 90 years old in one day, due to be involved as an executive director of a nonprofit that reaches out to over 2,500 members spanned out over 4 different time zones. So I'm very proud of that, making an impact to the community. Local community now to me includes like California, Hawaii, Japan, Washington, and it's something that I'm really passionate about and have grown out of that fear of public speaking and channel that energy to making a difference.
I appreciate that you challenged yourself, like to hear that you were fearful of public speaking and you still tried it, but didn't feel very confident at the time, but you still pushed forward. And I think that's the big takeaway, you know, and even if we could sum up your life, you know, and all of your experiences, that you still pivot. Like the power of your pivot is like pretty incredible, you know, and I think people can really glean from that, you know. And so now I think about like, you've been in business 10 years, you know, you've been at this for a long time, you know, that's a lot of business. 10 years in business feels like 30 years of life, you know, like it feels like a lot of growth opportunity. But, you know, technology is advancing, you know, like probably when you were beginning undergrad to, you know, someone that's just starting, you know, their first year in college, you know, everything is using technology, everything's so streamlined, you know. And I think there's a lot of conversation now around AI, which I feel like AI is being used in engineering and real estate and different industries.
Yeah.
I myself, I work in higher ed, and you know, and of course, there's a lot of talk about AI in higher ed because now it's like a matter of like plagiarism and intellectual property, and all these things are just becoming like staple conversations, even at the university that I work at. You know, and so my question for you is like, do you believe that like all industries should get on board and get, you know, ahead, even though AI is like here to stay, but like, do you feel like, what do you say to those industries that are like slow to adopt AI technologies?
Excellent. Yes, AI is here, has been here, and is here to stay. But it's a huge topic now because I think we all now have access. We all have access that we haven't had before. We all remember the movie, you know, with Will Smith and talking about AI, the, you know, robotic version of AI, right? So it's kind of not new. We think about the engineering world when you're bringing in the robots to, you know, build cars to kind of make it more efficient and safe, right? All part of the AI. But now it's different because guess what? You can use that AI and you can use it for free at any time for any reason you want, and you may or may not be trained on it. So what I would say to organizations or companies that are, you know, late adopters, slow adopters is it's a tool, right? It's like having a toolbox, and now we have this hammer that's always been there, but now it has new functionality. And the concern is are we using that hammer for the right purpose, right? If you have a screw and you're trying to use this hammer to get the screw in the wall, you really should be using the hammer to get the nail in the wall. And I think that's the uncomfortability is we're not necessarily trained on how to use this new technology, right? And so I think the issue comes down to a challenge of just change management. Often as humans and organizations, we're resistant to change. And it's kind of natural. Once we get in a groove, right, we're kind of used to that, our favorite restaurants, our favorite, you know, subjects. And AI is coming and saying, no, let's mix that all up a little bit. I can help you with content generation. I can help you streamline flows. I can help you create graphics, right? It's really challenging the way that we're used to thinking about consistency and having a normal kind of regular path of approaching problems. So my recommendation is, you know, and we talk to organizations about this through Estates LLC, is about, you know, look at it as a tool. And you know, if we don't use that hammer and we decide to not use any tools in the toolbox, well, there's other folks that are using that full toolbox, albeit they are getting more toolbox and they're signing up for all different types of platforms, AI platforms, just to make life better and a little bit more efficient. So it's something that's kind of new and challenging right now, but it also comes down to engaging the leadership and having those difficult conversations to say, well, hey, do we want to fall behind? or do we want to get ahead? Do we want to train our folks on how to use it, or do we want to train them on how not to use it, right? Do we have protocols in place that can help them along, not just compliance and regulations to prevent them from using it, right? And so those are the top 3 things I would say is training, leadership, talk about those different conversations around change management, and then hopefully understanding that we are people and there's nothing that can really replace us as human beings. Let's use the AI and technology as a supplement to who we are so we can do what we enjoy best, like this, interacting as people.
You hit it on the head. I wholeheartedly agree that it should not replace human effort. But I think that you've given some really great tips to foster wider acceptance and hopefully more implementation of AI technologies across all industries. Because I don't think there's any, like even our health experience, remember a time when you have to go to the doctor. Now we have telemedicine. It's like, it's funny how like it's so widely accepted in some industries, and then others are like, oh nope, we're not doing that. We still need people. And so, like you said, it should complement the human effort, not override it or take over it. So I appreciate that viewpoint, and I hope that it inspires more people. You are definitely a change agent across many disciplines, and I commend you on your success thus far. Sean Allen, I want to thank you for taking time out to be my special guest today. If anybody's interested in booking you for speaking engagements or working with you or just following your journey, what's the best way to connect?
Yeah, directly. My website is DAS Estates LLC, DAS, so DASEstatesLLC.com. Also, can I drop a phone number?
Yeah.
Calls all the time. I answer all my calls. 732-778-8080. 732-778-8080. Sean Allen. I'm also on TikTok. Sean the Real Goal Setter. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And until the next time.